Today is Wednesday, the 15th of November 2017. My greetings to all people of goodwill on earth who have conscience. I greet in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Like always, my name is Chinyere, the income writer, the messenger of the message of the carcass that is gathering the elect of God for translation and the end time scenario. Last time I came out to you, I told you I'm going to make a very special conversation with you on the Anambra election. But it have been very unfortunately, circumstances beyond my own personal control have almost made it impossible for me to meet this demand. And before I know it, the number election is over. And a lot of things I wanted to say, I wouldn't have said it, which have been very terrible. So I thank the Lord Jesus Christ for making it possible for me to be chance at least to tell you exactly what is going to happen in the Anambra election. You see, my Lord, this is going to be my sixth message and number 5 voice message to you. You see, because we have to temporarily suspend the decode of John Kerry's speech and handle this very issue of Anambra election, which is very, very serious. Because in the Nigerian election, this Anambra election is the most important election as long as the present administration is concerned. Because this administration will be a deciding factor. The whole world are looking upon this election. You understand me? I say that this election is not going to be because I know that people have already been disfranchised. The Anambra people are not the ones that are going to vote in this particular election. And I'm going to prove it so that the whole world will listen. And through this election, a lot of expos will come out because I told you that the time of theory for the Bible has ended. The Bible is now living a very practical thing, and things are happening so fast, physically and the spiritual, which people are not seeing. So we have to get over this Anambra election issue and then move on to a lot of serious things that have already developed, which I hope to bring to your own notice. This message is not exactly as I wanted to preach it. It's not as intensive as it is going to be. In fact, I'm starting from the last to the front, from the back to the front, instead of from front to back. What I'm going to say now is just what I'm supposed to have said last. This conversation I'm holding today, but because of the time factor, I have to bring it. So it's going to be a two-part edition. I'm going to show you exactly how they plan to do this Anambra election and deceive the world. But through it, the realization of Biafra, they have made it even more possible and more closer by all this rubbish that they are doing. So straight on, you see, I will go to Anambra election as it is immediately. You understand me? I'm going to show you how they plan to use the electronic system to rig this election. The last side we will discuss about, the confusion they will bring, about their plan B that will be manual, incident register and all that. We'll talk about that, but let's talk about the most important one, which is the electronic register. You see, because when you come to issue of election, there are very fundamental issues in an election. How fair is the umpire that is going to conduct the election? The people that will conduct the election, how fair are they? What are the systems that bring them up? How did they come up? Did they come in a flawed way? Or did they come in a very positive, neutral way that will guarantee transparency? So the role of the electoral umpire, that is in Nigeria, it is the INEC board, the chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission. You see, and the electoral board under his control, under his supervision, will they be seen as arbiters in our collective pursuit for peace through electoral process, as they will be the ones to organize, collect results, and even announce the result. So they must be seen to be neutral, fair and right, and by all, fair and right by all. Everybody will see them as being fair-minded and neutral. You understand me? Any act of mission on their part that tends to cast a slur on them or their business and their operations will go a long way to threaten the collective and individual perception of the electorate and by extension, the peace in the country. That is why it is very, very important that the body that oversees the election must be seen to be true, fair, and balanced by all. It is equally very important to understand that in serious issues like democratic election, it is usually very important for the electoral umpire or electoral body that will moderate that election to develop a strategy document. You have to have a strategy document for the election and cost all the activities involved to help them have a complete roadmap on how to conduct the election and also the cost implication that will be involved. The first task of my investigation is the 2015 election. That is the presidential election that brought in this Buhari. The test, my own first attack, because I did a very intensive research on that election. You understand me? On the presidential election. You understand me? When I intensive, research to decode the strategic document that Atehu Jega-led INEC will use in the conduct of that election. That intensive search revealed that Professor Tahiru Jega, that is the chairman of INEC then, resurrected and implemented the 2003 election documentary strategy that marked the beginning of a highly sophisticated supersonic scientific rigging in Nigeria that has proven to be foolproof in stealing the mandate of the people. That strategy brought former President Olusegun Obasanjo to power in 2003, and it was his hope and strategy to win his third-term bid, which are stopped by the expose I did to some strategic place people that stopped Obasanjo's ambition in 2015. This is what we'll be talking in the next part. Jega used it to remove Jonathan in 2015, and that is what he used to bring this Buhari to power. That is why you see underage voting, in the north and all that. You understand me? We will talk about that when we come to that. Then that is exactly what Mahmoud Yakubu is using in the Anambra election. That's what he's using. They have resurrected it. So before you go to the vote, to the poll to vote, the result is already known. They have already known it, the result. They have already known that the Anambra election as it is today is already known. It's already conducted. People are just wasting their time. INEC is only acting hollow as it is now. They're only acting hollow to accommodate the result they have already written. And that is what is going to be clear to everybody. So without taking much of your time, I'm going to go straight into this, and later I will now come back to explaining the issue of the 2015 and 2003 election. And you will see how Nigerians were disenfranchised in 2003 election, as Nigerians did not vote in their own election in 2003. It was not Nigerian vote that brought Obasanjo to power. That election was conducted outside. I'm telling you, outside the country. So when I come to it, you will understand exactly what is happening. So this present INEC chairman that is conducting this Anambra election, let us look at the processes that brought him in. First, in an interview, in a very insightful interview, the current chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, that Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, granted to the press in 2016. A lot, Vanguard, all of them carried it on his stewardship, on how the commission, under his stewardship, have fewer election nullification than his predecessor, than the preceding board under Tahiru Jega, published in the Vanguard newspaper edition of 19 December 2016. You will see it there. Caption, how we are beating Jega's record. How we are beating Jega's record. He explained that the two conditions that can make them suspend election in any case is violence and natural disaster. It's violence and natural disaster. The second one is where there is overcounting. INEC is empowered under the law to suspend the process and conduct the election at another time. He equally pointed out that the aftermath of the 2015 election conducted by Tahiru Jega was that 80 elections were nullified by the courts. 23 elections were upturned, and INEC was ordered by the courts to issue certificate of return to the right winners, making a total of 103 elections from the 2015 general election. Can you imagine? One election conducted by Tahiru Jega, flawed election, recorded 103 flawed election in the general election. By the time we'll be taking over the second part of this thing, you will see why those things happen. Because of the strategic document that you use. That's what happened. We'll talk about that. Professor Mahmoud Yakubu again was asked in that interview, the perception among some Nigerians is that you are being influenced by the president. He responded, For those who know me with my antecedents in the places I have worked, it is too late to be intimidated by anybody. I cannot, for what purpose, to achieve what at this stage? Nothing. There is nothing I am looking for that God has not given me. I completed my PhD from Oxford at 29, and my father was a headmaster. So what does anybody want to give me now? The only job I prayed for God to give me was to be a university lecturer, and that I'm now a professor. Any other thing I do is bonus. I do not think that there is anybody who can influence me. I headed the biggest funding agency in this country, and at the end of it, I went back to my teaching profession in the university. As the going say, they say those who pay, who pays the piper, dictates the tune. So let us subject what this man said to know whether it is the truth. Let us see the process, how he emerged to be the electoral head of INEC that have been conducting election in Nigeria. How did it come about? Let us see. You see, in the history of Nigerian politics, I want everybody to note, there has never been a time when the head of the electoral umpire, INEC, that is the Independent National Electoral Commission, emerged from the same ethnic stock as the incumbent president in order to give it the aura of independence without being influenced by ethnic sentiment. From 1999 to date, the practice has been the same from the time of late Ebel Gwobedia to Chief Maurice Iwu, an Igbo man under former President Olusegun Obasanjo, a Yoruba man, to the time of Yaradua, an Hausa Fulani man, that still retained Maurice Iwu to the time of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, an Ijaw man from the South, who not only picked INEC boss from the core north of Kebbi State, but picked Professor Tahiru Jega, whom he had never seen or had any contact with before his approval. You understand me? Who eventually conducted an election that dusted the man that picked him out of power. Then entered the turn of the Daura Prince from Katsina State, President Muhammadu Buhari. And what did he do? He put a hot blade upon the cord that held the country together and brutally cut it in his final show of impudence to show us that we are a conquered people and that the country, the sole heritage of the Hausa Fulani stock and his Yoruba collaborators, when he rearranged the succession order in INEC. In a bid to enhance a smooth succession plan, Professor Tahiru Jega, former chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission, whose tenure expired shortly after the 2015 general election, had handed over to Ambassador Ahmed Wali, pending the appointment of another chairman of the electoral body. But 8 hours later, President Muhammadu Buhari overruled that arrangement and appointed Mrs. Amina Zakari, one of the national commissioners, due to retire then as acting chairman in contravention of the laid down rules and procedure. Ambassador Wali's tenure expired on August 11, 2015, while Mrs. Zakari's tenure expired since July 31, 2015. Mrs. Zakari is not only from the same zone as Buhari, but actually is related to the president at the time of her appointment, which created serious tension and credibility problem for a man who claims he came to fight corruption. Things were made worse as Section 153 of the 1999 Constitution, which established INEC, did not make provision for the appointment of an acting chairman. Also, Section 1543 provided that the president shall consult the Council of State in exercising his powers to appoint a person as the chairman of INEC. Realizing the legal implication of retaining Mr. Zakari made him pick another of his kinsmen, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to replace Mrs. Zakari. That is the present incumbent INEC chairman. Many commissioners whose tenures expired alongside Jega's tenure that eventually left and have President Buhari reconstituted the board of INEC left some people wondering if Nigeria is indeed a country. Of course, we are not a country. You understand me? Contrast Buhari's action to that of his predecessor in this regard, and you will begin to understand the kind of man we have as president in the person of President Muhammadu Buhari, who singularly constituted a supposed independent body INEC, reconstituted it without any care at all, as a tool of capturing of strategic states that he will use as a launchpad in his jihad that is coming, and finally turn the whole, southeast or former eastern region into an Islamic nation. That is exactly how this man came about. And that is the strategic appointment he was given and what he was intended to achieve. That is one for him. So, In that particular interview, I want the whole world to listen. This man was asked, this President INEC chairman, he was asked in that interview of Vanguard, don't you think that deploying more technology in our election could help solve some of these challenges? That was the question they asked him. Yakubu replied, let us not think that a piece of technology alone can solve our problems. Elections are ultimately conducted by human beings. Now listen, hear him. Germany, one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, conducts elections. There is nothing to do with technology whatsoever. I want you to notice, Germany, there is no majority in the election, and I had the opportunity of discussing this matter with returning officer for the state of Berlin, the equivalent of the chairman of our own state independent electoral commission in Nigeria. And I discussed the matter with my colleagues. That is, in Germany, his colleagues in Germany, the federal ruling officer, the equivalent of the chairman of INEC in Nigeria. And they laughed and said, Germans don't trust technology with their elections. But what makes the difference is the level of trust the people have in the system. Do we have that in Nigeria? Germans don't trust technology in their system, in the elections. What makes the difference is the level of trust the people have in the system. Can we report that level of trust in you? Mahmoud Yakub. That is number one. I'm still quoting him. Some of the worst violators of our laws are among those who accuse us of bias. You can deploy technology, and technology cannot solve all the problems. We have to solve our problems. Some of the national commissioners here went to Benin Republic in February and March when they had their presidential election. What we call sensitive material, for which we deploy helicopters and gunboats and even armored personnel carriers in Nigeria to protect, were the same materials that were given to a presiding officer in a polling unit, and they put everything together in a box into the ballot box, and then the presiding officer will stop a motorcycle and carry the materials to the polling units unaccompanied by any security personnel. At the end of the election, it was the party agents that calculated the votes, completed the result sheets, put them in a bus, and they stopped a motorcycle to take it to the coalition centers unaided by any security. Why is our own system, our own experience different? We can introduce technology, but technology cannot be all. But that is not to say that there is no place for technology in election. There is a place for technology, and I want to assure you that as part of the new initiatives we considered only just yesterday in our weekly commission meetings was this idea of introducing e-collation and e-transmission of results. Already we have a pilot scheme. When we conduct statewide elections, the results were uploaded. Each time such elections are conducted, I observe the results in our situation room, and we follow the results from every polling unit. But you know, INEC does not declare any result in Abuja, only the presidential election. So we have reached a point where we are prepared to deploy the technology. And I am very happy to say that the Senate is amending the Electoral Act to introduce e-voting and e-transmission. If you notice, much of the violence in recent elections do not take place in polling units. It is in the course of transmitting the results. Now, once we introduce electronics to the transmission of results, we then have to take other measures to protect the polling units, because violence will now turn to the polling units. But these are not accidental matters. They are deliberate matters, and for as long as we do not punish criminality in this country, this will continue. I want to give you my word, and on behalf of the Commission, we will never waver. There has never been any pressure brought to bear on me, and to the best of my knowledge, on any of the commissioners. Okay, this is what he said. Okay, now the Senate of Nigeria, they now rush to approve e-voting. That is the Senate that the Hausa Fulani's control. What is the value of the Nigerian Senate? They have no value. Nigeria have no value. The Senate of Nigeria have no value. Look at them. News report of 3 days ago. You see all the treaties Nigeria signed, there's no record of them. They don't have a record of any treaty. That is the Nigerian Senate for you. That is how they are. The same Nigerian Senate invited the Inspector General of Police. This Nigerian Senate invited the Inspector General of Police, say his name is Ibrahim Idris, to come before them. The man initially didn't want to come. Eventually, when the man came, the man refused to talk with them. He said he cannot talk because he's obeying the law. The case is in court. The same man who refused to communicate with the Senate in a serious allegation that was brought against him by another senator, Senator Monsieur, who brought very damaging accusations against this man. Even he's breaking the rule to romance, female officers under his control and even married against police rule. The man refused to do any comment, not to talk of the embezzlement of money, trillions of money he had been stealing from companies. Before the Senate, the man could not talk. He said he cannot talk. He's obeying the court order. The same man left them and he spoke. He still communicated. He still wrote. Because they don't go to school, they don't know the meaning of communication. The man wrote that he's free to romance any officer, any woman of any female officer that is free. They can't go him, they can't do anything to him. They left him. That is the Senate of Nigeria. Senate that is a rubber stamp. Senate that kept a blind eyes and all sorts of rubbish in Nigeria is going on because they are controlled by the Hausa Fulanis. The majority in the Senate. That's it. They are the majority in the Senate. They are the majority in the police force. They are the majority. Everywhere you go, they dominate. Nigerian police force is the recorded as the worst police force in the whole world. That is the police force of Hausa Fulani. That is Nigerian Senate. That is why they approved it. Because they have discovered the system they will use to be rigging election forever and ever till thy kingdom come. Full proof. That was what Obasanjo used in 2003. I did the expose and I killed his total ambition. We are coming to have an intensive discussion on that when we discuss the second aspect of this particular thing. Now, he mentioned Germany. Now, we are going to look at this issue of electronic voting. Let us look at electronic voting. For instance, now this is a man who claimed that he had his PhD at 29, bragging that nobody can bribe him. Then let us see whether he's qualified to have that PhD. Now, electronic voting machines are banned in many countries. For example, Netherlands cities, banned it because of lack of transparency and unguaranteed security. Ireland scrapped EVMs after spending £51 million for 3 years due to lack of transparency and trust. Germany considers e-voting unconstitutional due to lack of transparency to a common voter. That is the same Germany he cited. Then this man that claimed to have a PhD from Oxford is a disgrace, not only to the country, it's a disgrace to the university that gave him the PhD. It means that Oxford have done like what Trump used to call CNN, fake news. You gave a man like this a PhD, then he came back, and the only experiment he can come to implement in his country is what others are rejecting. But he went to Benin Republic, and he saw what they are doing in Benin Republic. And then he come to your own country. This is you are implementing the opposite. Now, he's talking about modalities in Benin Republic. I personally went to Ghana to monitor the presidential election of that country in 2008, in which the late President John Evan Atta Mills of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, defeated the ruling party candidate, Nana Akufo-Addo, in a very interesting, very intensely contested election. Intensely contested election. I'm telling you. Now what happened? It's like what you said happened in the Benin Republic, in my own front. All these things we're talking about sensitive material. There is nothing like sensitive materials in their own place. Nothing like that. What do we see there? You see a transparent bag white bag, white transparent cellophane bag. It will be brought there in the presence of everybody. You cast your vote. When you cast your vote, you stay outside, you stay one side, you give a distance. At the end of every voting, everybody will be there. You count the votes. Before you leave the polling unit, you already know the result. You already know the result. Anybody can carry the result. One person can carry, anybody can just, one agent can just take it to anywhere. The same thing he said happened in Benin. Because of the trust in the system. All they do to avoid confusion, the electoral body is the one authorized to announce. Before they announce, the result is already known. That is why they say truth is very simple. Lies is the only thing that are complicated. When you see complication, lies. That is it. President Muhammad Buhari bring your certificate. He went and obtained all sorts of false injunction. Simple thing, look at my certificate. Lies. He can't. That is what sort of court injunctions we can. He's Inspector General of Police. These are accusations. He went and obtained the Attorney General of the Federation and all that. They put up all sort of injunction. The Senate want to hear it. Attorney General of the Federation will go and checkmate the Senate in court. To hear a simple allegation against somebody. You take the man that accused him, you place him in the court, he cannot talk. Nobody, ban everybody from discussing it. Because you are hiding something. So truth is always simple. Lies are always complicated. Now look at the trust in the system. The electoral umpire of Ghana, Dr. Afari Jiyan, that is the head of Ghana's Electoral Commission. That man was appointed in 1993. He was there till 2015, a total of 22 years, during which he successfully chaired and supervised elections. From 1992, he supervised it. 1996 general election, the same man. 2000 election, the same man. 2004 election, the same man. 2008, which I witnessed, the same man. And 2012, orderly succession of government. From one government to the other, everybody accepting it, no crisis. His era was Ghana's, Ghana was, the electoral bars was elevated under him, under his tenureship. And Ghana became a model of democracy, not only in sub-Saharan Africa, but in the whole of the world. Ghana became a shining example, a stellar system to be emulated by every other person. Fearless and uncompromising. I'm telling you, he was described as a walking electoral encyclopedia. Yes, with all the experiences he has garnered in all these things, why can't he be a repository of knowledge on electoral matters? He should be an encyclopedia of electoral matters. Just under scientists, under political scientists, described him as Africa's most respected electoral commissioner. That is what he is. By political scientist, Dr. Kwesi Jonah. It was in 1992 that this Afari replaced their opaque ballot boxes and introduced this transparent one. I was watching in one of the interviews. He said Ghana's electoral system has developed fair, safe security system which make it virtually impossible to massage figures, and therefore nonsensical to bribe electoral commission officials for that purpose. If you are bribing them, you are wasting your time. That is what trust in the system. One man, 22 years, conducting an election and everybody accepting this election. Is it so to you? Because of the transparency that he brought to bear on the election, knowing that any mistake, the country will be on fire, knowing that the people must exercise that critical franchise of handing that their right to the elected representative. Once they do it, no more. The representatives go there to represent them. So it is a sacred mandate. Now look at you, your own. He said Germany considers e-voting unconstitutional due to lack of transparency to a common voter. Italy states that EVMs are easy to falsify. US, California, and other states ban EVM without paper trial. Even with the paper trial, look at election in America, 2016 presidential election. Hillary Clinton claims she won the majority votes and all that. Now Trump wants to do electoral reform. Bring all the electoral materials you use in conducting the election. Give me some numbers of the voters. He was requesting for voters' record. The state controlled by Democrats, they say no. They are not going to release it. Why? Because they know that the moment they release that, the fraud of winning the majority vote will be exposed. They didn't. Up to today. Up to today, they didn't. Up to today, they did not. They did not. They did not. Which got even Trump himself is enraged. What did he say? He says states refusing to hand over voters' registration. He said Trump himself said numerous states are refusing to give information to the very distinguished voters fraud panel that he set up. He asked them, "What are you hiding?" That is what he's asking them. What are you hiding by refusing? That is about USA, the people that back their own with paper trial. Look at it. CIA security expert Mr. Stigall monitoring use of EVMs, that is electronic voting, in developing nations such as Venezuela, Macedonia, and Ukraine reported abuse using electronic voting machines. England and France are not implementing. They are not using it. These are technologically advanced countries. Mr. Subramanian Swamy, with a MIT professor, demonstrated to the Indian Election Commissioner how easy it is to manipulate the EVM. Consequently, with Harry Prasad, heavy critics, accompanied his investigation on EVM against the possible election fraud. The Supreme Court in India, against election fraud. He said, unlike the traditional ballot system where only the election officials were the insiders, electronic voting machines regime has spanned a long chain of insiders, including the manufacturers of the EVM, programmers, foreign companies, fusing microchips abroad, and their suppliers through vendors, maintenance engineers, local officials, and so on and so forth. These private players may have their own agendas and preferences. This may include running governments. Outsiders are people who can manipulate the EVMs away from the machines with gadgets while voting is in process. The serious dangers from outsiders are that they can change the result to elect terrorist organizations, cause an extremist, and so on and so forth, of which the result will be final, doomed forever, as there will be no room for contesting it. A team led by Harry Prasad, Alex Hadaman, and Rob Gonjirib on 29 April 2010, released information about a range of serious security problems with Indian EVMs. They were able to identify several attacks that manipulated the hardware, either by replacing components or by clamping something onto a chip on the motherboard to modify votes. They implemented demonstration attacks, actually building proof of concept substitute hardware and vote manipulation devices. The attacks were neither complicated nor difficult to perform, and yet hard to detect this type of cyber crimes. Rob John Jirip, William Jan Hengevel, and his team, after 1 month of studying EVM functioning, concluded that anybody with knowledge and a brief external access of the EVM at any time during the election can have complete control and modify election results. Emmanuel Lombardi explained, sitting governments are in charge of guaranteeing the accuracy of electoral results and the secrecy of votes. but their interest is inclined to maintain power and control. They could easily succeed thanks to the complete control they have over the electoral process, falsifying electoral results and violating the secrecy of votes cannot be ruled out. In our system of representative democracy, elections provide the only occasion when people directly exercise their sovereign powers and immediately relinquish their power to each elected representative. If this sacred power is abused and violated by a voting system of dubious integrity open to insidious fraud, it is evident that our democracy is seriously endangered. Overlay public seem overconfident with electronics. They cannot visualize electronic deficiencies. The nation is further wrong to believe in an election commission which fails to establish rights of the public with transparency and openness. Now, look, this is their warning. Dictatorships are usually set up and preserved by means of violence, but the power can also be taken and preserved using electoral fraud. If such fraud were to go undetected, electoral results will no longer rely on our votes, and we, the people, would not even notice we had lost democracy because we would continue voting. Can you imagine? Then they look at the recommendation. Ballot paper election can undergo proper democratic control because humans can check the handling of ballot papers, which are visible and tangible objects. It is not by chance that all democracies always use ballot papers. With them, a few votes may get lost, but no foreign company, terrorist group, economical or political power will ever be able to alter the final result of our election. Manipulation machines that go through the election time after time is excluded in that text. Now, electronics election can't undergo proper democratic control because computer procedures are not verifiable by humans, as we are not equipped to verify operation occurring within an electronic machine. Results of any electronic votes are due to their nature unverifiable, and no technical solution can overcome this fact. Electronic voting is not a technical but a social problem. Government can't demonstrate that electronic voting results are correct, but oppositions have no way to support any claim that fraud or mistakes have occurred. In retrospect, we can say ballot paper elections are very robust and have no single point of failure. Thousands of ordinary people across the whole nation can guarantee and satisfy meaningful electoral results. Ballots are unaffected by power costs or electronic shocks. For electoral results to be verifiable and votes absolutely secret, voting must be anonymous, tangible, human-readable objects. Electronics may have the wrong winner not only because of fraud, but also because of malfunctions of the technical apparatus involved in the voting. In fact, during real electronic elections, malfunctions do occur very often. Electronic votes carried out via computer and digital links represent a poison chalice for technologically advanced countries. It is an enticing chalice because it is surrounded by good intention, but it's equally foul system which is beyond any democratic and value check. The greatest supporters of electronic voting are ruling governments and hardware and software vendors. Why should we accept to trust unverifiable electronic votes that can be easily manipulated or cast doubts in our heads? We should stay with ballot papers, publicly hand-counted, because this is the only way we can verify that results are fair and square. That is by Dr. Emu Radmahawu. This is an international, very international masterpiece. Now let us go to Europe. Europe, he mentioned Germany. So he must have known the countries that rejected all these things. That is forcing Nigeria to accept. That is how Buhari hoped to win in 2019. That is how the United Nations supported him. They are going to have a free and fair election because they have discovered a winning tactics. That was the first scientist who decoded it in 2003. And we shall see that, and the whole world will see how they manufacture Nigerian populations on paper. A lot of things will be exposed. You see how Obasanjo third time died. How all the whole senators that opposed Obasanjo in his Bakassi cell, how he rigged all of them out of power. That is what this man is implementing in this Anambra election. Now look at Europe reject digital voting machine. I'm quoting the Newsweek, an international paper of Friday, May 22, 2009. You see, look at it. I'm quoting the paper. When Ireland embarked on an ambitious e-voting scheme in 2006 that would dispense with stupid old pencil, as then Prime Minister Bati Ahem put it, in favor of fancy touchscreen voting machine, it seems that the nation was embracing its technological future. 3 years and £51 million later, in April, the government scrapped the entire initiative. High costs were one concern. Finishing the project would take another £28 million. But what doomed the effort was a lack of trust. The electorate just didn't like that the machines would record their votes as mere electoral beliefs with no tangible records. One doesn't have to be a conspiracy theorist or a Luddite to understand the fallibility of electronic voting machines, as most PC users by now know computers have bugs and can be hacked. We take on this security risk in banking, shipping, and emailing, but the ballot box must be perfectly said. At least that is what European voters seem to be saying. Electronic voting machines do not meet this standard. I hope the whole world is hearing. US is coming to monitor number election. This is how they have rigged it for you. Written by CIA already. They were the same people that conducted the 2003 election. That is why they are coming to monitor. That is why they are telling you it's going to be a free and fair rubbish. Nothing. What is their free and fair? Kenya used to be a model in election. When John Kerry went to Kenya to monitor election, what happened? Have Kenya become the same thing again? That is it. Manipulation, falsifying everywhere. This is Europe. They cannot implement it into their own place. But they are doing it for you. Now I'm still reading the Newsweek. A backlash against e-voting is breaking all over the continent after almost 2 years of deliberation. Germany's Supreme Court ruled in March that e-voting was unconstitutional because the average citizen would not be expected to understand the exact steps involved in the recording and tallying of votes. You will see it. Then we have villagers, people in the village too, in Nigeria. Now listen, I'm still reading him. Political scientist Joachim Weisner and his son Ulrich, a physicist, filed the initial lawsuit and have been instrumental in raising public awareness of the insecurity of electoral voting. In an interview with the German magazine Der Spiegel, the younger Weisner said with some justification that the Dutch NEDAP machine used in Germany are even less secure than mobile phone. Can you imagine? The Dutch public interest group We Virtuwen STEM computer net we do not trust voting machine produce a video showing how quickly the NEDAP machine could be hacked without voters or election officials being aware. I'm telling you, are you hearing me? The answer, 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes. After the clip was broadcasted on national television in October 2006, the net alarm banned all electronic voting machines. That is what is implementing. A man who claims he has PhD. That is the rubbish he's going to implement. It's a disgrace to Oxford University. Oxford University is even deficient in giving him that PhD. That is that. He cannot even manipulate that thing. The CIA have to do it and give it to him. They're bloody illiterate. He doesn't know what he's doing. They claim he have PhD at 29. And so what? Look at the fraud he's going to come and rig Anambra people. Because my people sleep the sleep of death. That is why they allow themselves to be tossed around by every stupid thing. None of them can stand up and stand like a man and talk. They are being carried away in captivity. And they have used an umbrella election as a format to put in all sorts of jihadists in Biafra land, so that when they commit their jihad, they finish everybody. I'm still quoting the Newsweek. It said numerous electronic voting inconsistencies in developing countries where governments are often all too eager to manipulate votes have only added to the controversy. After Hugo Chavez won the 2004 election in Venezuela, it came out that the government owned 28% of Vista, the company that manufactured the voting machine. Similarly, the 2004 election in India were notorious for gangs stuffing electronic ballot boxes in villages. Electronics, they stole it electronically. Why are the machines so vulnerable? Look at why the machines are so vulnerable. Each step of the cycle of a voting machine, from the time it is developed and installed to when the votes are recorded and the data transferred to a central repository for tallying, involve different people gaining access to the machines, often installing new softwares. It wouldn't be hard for, say, an election official to plant a Trojan program on one of many voting machines that would ensure one outcome or another, even before voters arrived at the station. I want you to listen. Even before voters arrived at the station, it would be just as easy to compromise the privacy of votes, identifying who voted for whom. Before you come there, everything is all over. Before you come, it is all over. In the same interview that Mahmoud Yakubu gave to Vanguard that I was reading before, he was asked another question. Now listen to this final question that he was asked. What are you doing about the high rate of uncollected permanent voters card PVCs? Now listen to his response. He responded, "It is a big issue. I have been receiving monthly returns from the state office, but sometimes there would be 400,000 PVCs uncollected in a state, and the monthly return will show only 30 as having been collected. People don't want to collect. It has to be tied to something. Maybe election is around the corner and they wish to vote. There is an incentive for them to do so. The director of ICT was telling me that the issue of cars is already tied to something. You want to drive, you go for a driver's license. You want to you want a bank account, you go for a BVN, or you want to travel, then you go for your international passport. There is always a need. There is always tied to something. Okay. For your internet, there is always a need. It has to be tied to something. Then, very interesting, in the next line of question, I want the whole people to listen. E-registration of voters very interesting. Look at his comment on the e-registration of voters. Look at what he said. And very important to note his comment. The whole world should listen. Exactly how this fraud will be done electronically. This is exactly how they perpetrate the fraud. He said, look at what he said. He said, this one PVC, that is the permanent voters card, is only tied to an election coming up once every 4 years. And so if elections are not around the corner, most people don't bother about collecting them. But as part of the innovatives, look at what he said. As part of the innovatives, numerous electronic voting inconsistencies is. Wait. Let me see. Okay, look at it. I want to go back. As part of the innovative that we are going to unveil early next year, which they have already unveiled, we are going to make the process easier. And you can even register, transfer, or relocate, and then you can check if you are a registered voter online. But we are very careful so that we don't reveal people's date of birth, telephone numbers, emails, addresses, and other personal information. Now, note, I want you to note what he said again. Each PVC will have a voter identification number called VIN, which you can use to check where you were registered. We are going to provide a tracking mechanism. If you have a PVC and you don't know where it is, you can track online using something like Google Map. It can even direct you to the place where you can pick up the card. But this would also only apply to people in the urban areas. My grandmother in the village will not be able to access that service, and so we have to continue to get the cards down to the level they are supposed to be collected. This one clearly tells you that if your voter's identification number called VIN through their tracking mechanism can direct you to locate where your PVC, you don't know where it is, to be seen and collected, it equally means that the same tracking mechanism can direct your vote through your VIN to candidate of their choice, whether or not you voted for that candidate or not. That is exactly how they will do it. They said PVC that their machine. That is what he said. That the candidate and all that their electronic system, that they are using 4 days to configure it. They are using, well, the party agents who was there when you are configuring, who knows the chip you are putting there. And that is what you used to conduct the election in Anambra people. And the people are out there laughing, not knowing that they are finished. You see, because we live in very direct time, very serious time. Now look at it. They came again. One man said, who is it? I think he said Dap Olorin, one Yoruba guy. He said that the Nigerian journalists are the worst, that the bribery that goes on in journalism is worse than the one that goes on in police force. And of course, you know, the Nigerian police is voted as the worst police force in the whole world. Now look at some of the headlines. Vote and die, IPOB threatens Anambra residents. Vote and die, IPOB threatens Anambra residents. That is the caption. Nigerian news. You see, from Hitler and his generals, we heard that a lie repeated often becomes the truth. And one other wise man said it's easier to fool people than even to convince them that they are being fooled, which is true. They repeated these lies, and it became the truth. Now they graduated. IPOB threatens to attack Buhari. IPOB threatens to attack Buhari. Look at it. IPOB threatens to attack Buhari. Now look at the news. People of Biafra, they proscribed indigenous people of Biafra on Monday, asked President Buhari not to come to the southeast, which is referred to as Biafra land, or else he would not leave the political region alive. That was on November 14, 2017. Now what again? This lies because it is believed they graduated it. Federal government, IPOB imported arms from Turkey to destabilize the Nigerian government. That is federal government of Nigeria. This is what they told the court. That IPOB imported arms to destabilize the Nigerian government. Have you seen the graduation of lies? Because they are in a hurry to justify the proscription of IPOB as a terrorist organization. That is what they are doing. And the elders of Igbo land, they kept quiet. All of them kept quiet. All of them kept quiet. Now, who is an IPOB member and who is not an IPOB member? That is the question. Who is an IPOB member and who is not an IPOB member? As I am, I may not be a member of IPOB member led by Nnamdi Kanu. But I'm an indigenous person of Biafra. What is the difference between myself and Nnamdi Kanu? The difference is like 6.5 pence. 6.5 dozen. The same thing. The same thing, they cannot differentiate it. How will they be able to differentiate who is IPOB and who is not IPOB? Does it make any sense? Now, when you come, let me show you one thing. Arewa Youth Service. Look at Arewa People's Congress. Or even before we go to Arewa, let us come to Yoruba land. Look at OPC. You call a Yoruba man. Who is OPC in Yoruba land and who is not OPC? That is the issue. Go and press Wikipedia on Gani Adams. It will tell you that Otumba Ganiyu Adams, also known as Gani Adams, born April 30, 1970, is a Nigerian social activist and politician. Ganiyu is the leader of a faction of the Odua People's Congress, a secessionist and nationalist organization based in Nigeria, which supports a sovereign state for the Yoruba people. Odua People's Congress was formed in 1994 as a social cultural group to promote Yoruba culture. That is, look at it. That is what they are. Have anybody prescribed them? Now look at it. Now, let me just tell you one thing. Look at it. When you come to Hausa land, he said, let me tell you how they formed it. In a bid to counter the violent activities of the Southwestern Odua People's Congress, OPC, against Northerners living in the southwestern part of the country, the Arewa People's Congress, APC, has said that it will commence full education of Northerners in the art of self-defense. This was announced in a press conference at Kano on Monday, 13 December 1999, by the APC Director of Publicity Research and Documentation, Mr. Isaac Soto. He stated that the move became necessary because the federal government and its law enforcement agents, especially the police, have proved incapable of guaranteeing the security of Northerners in the southwestern part of the country. What I'm reading for you is by Saji Mohammed. Saji Mohammed, the former operative of the Director of Military Intelligence, about Arewa People's Congress. You understand me? That was when it was formed. That was it was launched on, they formed it on 13th in Kano, 13th December 1999. Have they banned them? Are they calling them terrorist organization? But our elders, they sold us up. Our people, they sold us up. They knew that the Biafrans, that the actual Biafrans are not coming to vote in that election. So they have imported all the numerous security, millions of thousands and hundreds of thousands of security personnel who will come and act like Biafrans and vote in a supposed election that they have already rigged up front. That is their method. If Mahmoud is a wise man, with all the deployment of security officials in Anambra State, why does he not protect the ballot boxes, conduct a free and fair election in which the votes will be counted at the polling unit and everybody knows the result and know if it is foreigners that are coming to vote or not? I will stop here so far. I'm coming on the second one. Goodbye and have a nice time. God bless you. And when I come again, we'll talk and we will do a lot of expos because a lot of things are happening. You see, we have to go back to the coding of that John Kerry speech. Very, very important. So that humanity will be saved because a lot of things are happening fast. So have a nice time and may God bless you in Jesus' name. Bye-bye.